So the project is located at the bottom end of the Cowiche Creek watershed, just west of the city of Yakima, and right above the confluence area with the Naches River. This project was born um, mainly out of two pretty significant floods that happened in February of 2016 and March of 2017, where Cowiche Creek overflowed its banks and went um, all the way into the city of Yakima, into Myron Lake, and then into Willow and Lake Aspen, and actually flooded all the way down to 16th Avenue. And just a couple pictures there of those flood events. And so that led to the creation of an ILA between the county, the city of Yakima, and the WSDOT to try to resolve some of these issues with the flooding and also restore the floodplain function at the Naches and Cowiche's confluence area. And here you can just see some of the language from the ILA and the purpose of the ILA and the original concept poster for the project to kind of give you a sense of the scale of the project here. So this is an overview of basically phase one actions here. You can see the area I'm requesting funding for today is this portion of the Naches Cowiche Canal Association canal here between Cowiche Creek, where it comes out of a siphon here, to where it's going to pass through the setback levee that is currently in design for this site. We also have plans to replace the highway bridge over US 12, and I have another grant application in currently for the design money to give to WSDOT to get that started. Over on the north side of the freeway here, see if I can use a laser pointer. Oh, there we go. You can also see we have some seasonal side channels planned for this area to activate that floodplain. And at the north end of this site, this is actually about 10 to 12 foot drop off here to the banks of the river. So getting some seasonal side channels in there, move some of that material and activate this floodplain, which was formerly an orchard site, would drastically improve the condition of this confluence area. So besides the stuff we can do right now, there are also components of this project which rely on completion of the Nelson Dam Phase 2, which is under construction right now. This is actually a drone photo from last week. So with the construction of Nelson Dam Phase 2, it's going to consolidate a lot of the irrigation withdrawals and diversions near the confluence of the Cowiche and Naches into one general pipeline that'll run along US 12 into the city of Yakima. And that'll allow us to take out a lot of the diversions and partial barriers to fish passage to really get all the benefits of projects in the Cowiche Creek watershed. So these are some of those future phase actions. You can see there's several diversions for there's an Old Union canal here, the Fruitvale Canal, and they all have their own diversion here. And there's also a steep pass, Alaska Steep Pass fishway, I believe it's right here, for fish to get into Cowiche Creek. And there's also some issues with commingling of water as the lower section of Cowiche Creek is used as a conveyance of some of the Naches River water to these irrigation systems. And so that has a lot of problems for fish in terms of upstream passage, as well as false attraction flows. And these future phase actions are the ones I was speaking of that rely on the completion of Nelson Dam Phase 2. So here's just a property ownership map of the area. Thanks to Surfboard and others, we've acquired large portions of property in this confluence. The site I'll be talking about today is Site A right here, which was purchased by the city of Yakima, and they granted us an easement over the entire site to do the setback. And then This one up here, which I'm calling Site C, we purchased along with these parcels along here. And the long-term vision for this area, once we fix the issues with the diversions and the barriers and the connectivity of the floodplain, is to be some sort of park facility for the local residents. So here's a site plan for what I'm calling phase 1. So these would all be permitted together. And so I'm asking Surfboard for money to about $330K to bury this portion of the Naches Cowiche Canal into a piped system passing through the setback levee, which will allow us to open up this about four acres of floodplain here. And currently it's confined by an embankment on the south bank of Cowiche Creek. This would allow the creek to move around in here, and then also allow us to protect the city from flooding like we saw in 2016 and 2017. And then at Site C would be those seasonal side channels. There'd be 2 of them, one passing through this existing pond here and another one freshly excavated through this open area, and both going back to the Naches River near the edge of the parcel. And another big component of this project would be riparian planting. We'd want to plant all the areas in green here at Site C and this area at Site A between the creek and the setback levee. So this is the part of the preliminary design for the canal protection efforts. The design for the setback levee is being developed by the same consultants that did the canal designs, and those are slated for delivery in July of this year. So the schedule for this would be to start permitting in July once we get those preliminary designs, and then hopefully to reach construction in summer of next year. This project draws on a lot of recommendations from different management plans. As you can see, all those ones I've listed there, the CFHMP, Steelhead Recovery Plan, and Bull Trout Action Plan, among others. And this project specifically addresses these 5 Naches actions from the Steelhead Recovery Plan. And the projects Margaret was presenting earlier are actually just upstream from this site. So getting that canal protected from flooding will allow us to open up a lot of floodplain here and provide benefits all the way down to the confluence once we get those passage barriers out with the completion of Nelson Dam. And then finally, I just have a couple pictures from the site. This is along that south embankment looking towards US 12, and you can see there's not a lot of vegetation left. Recently, the Corps did an inspection on this levee, and the city was directed to remove the vegetation so they could complete their inspections. So there's currently not really a riparian vegetation zone along the south bank of this creek, which is obviously detrimental for shading and riparian habitat. And this is just a picture of the canal we're proposing to pipe. It's the Naches Cowiche main line here, which is currently just an open concrete lined ditch. And then this is just a general photo of Site A. As you can see, there's a few straggler apple trees in there from previous orchard production, and I think there's a lot of cochea and pepperweed. So we have quite a lot of planting budget from other grants to do the work out here to restore this site to a more natural condition. And that's all I have. I'll take some questions now.
Thank you, Luke. I have a question.
Yep.
See a synergy that could develop between this and the Cowiche project that Columbia is proposing, or projects, I should say.
Yeah, definitely. Once we have the passage barriers out from the mouth, I think this could be a pretty significant reach for steelhead and coho production, and also for spring chinook rearing. So this is kind of the key to the watershed, is this area, this confluence area. And so I think there's been a lot of money invested and time invested in projects, further up the watershed, and completing the actions here at the confluence, which really allow us to take full advantage of those efforts.
Sean has a question here in the chat. What is the anticipated flood frequency of Site A?
Well, the floods that overtopped that levee were not really big events. I think we estimated them as like a 12 to 15 year event. And we are going to demo the existing embankment once the setback is in place. And there's going to be some grading to encourage occupation of that floodplain. So I'd say, once every couple to, 2 to 5 years, we'll have water actually occupying most of the site. And I think every year we'll have more potential for activation of the floodplain than exists now.
Could you go back to the image of where you wanted to locate the side channels on the main stem river?
Yep. So these would be the side channels up here at Site C. Oops.
It doesn't appear, I mean, especially the upstream one, it's immediately below the bridge. And then there's like some gravel aggradation there with the little island and stuff. And then it doesn't appear like there's side channels there now. I mean, that ground is pretty high, but I'm not positive. Have you guys like really assessed that's suitable location, that gravel won't simply plug those entrances up, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we've the original these are conceptual designs for these side channels, which will need some more design work to work out the elevations and the inlet configuration. But these were based off LiDAR and modeling that was conducted by my predecessor, Dale Meck. And I think we're going to need probably some adaptive management to get the flows we want there during the times of the year we want them in there. I think during the growing season, and definitely after flip-flop, when the reservoirs switch to rim rock and bumping, we want these to be flowing. I see the one about Powerhouse Road Bridge. We are also looking at replacing Powerhouse, and there's actually a COG and WashDOT traffic study going on right now for this area around Ackley and Powerhouse. We've done some modeling has been completed that will inform the span of the design for that bridge, but it's just in the planning stage for the Powerhouse Road Bridge at the moment.
Sean says, did you say the surface at Site C is 12 feet above the Naches River? Does that mean a 12-foot deep cut at the inlets?
Yeah, it's pretty tall. So I think there would be a significant cut to facilitate, like a bell-shaped opening there to get water into those side channels. So yeah, it would be a significant amount of excavation.
What was your ask?
It's $332,000.
For just site A and site C.
Yes. And it's specifically for protecting this canal. We have money from a Floodplains by Design grant to construct the setback levee and excavate the channels.
But so are you saying Site C is not part of this project?
It is. It's part of the same phase, but it's not. The excavation wouldn't be funded by surfboard money.
You're just asking us to pay to put that canal on a pipe to facilitate.
Yes, I know it's kind of a strange request for surfboard, but it's really the last piece of funding we need to move forward with permitting and construction of these measures at both sites.
Okay, so I just requested, I haven't read your application yet, so hopefully that is really clear in there. It's just, you know, on these big multi-phase projects, it's hard to follow what we're actually funding. So that would be helpful. It's just to clarify.
Okay.
Elizabeth says, if you wanted to show benefits to fish, you could incorporate restoration efforts into the scope of the project.
Right. I think the connection to the floodplain and the riparian planting would be the biggest benefits for this phase of the project, as well as the off-channel habitat created by the seasonal side channels, and preparing us for those later phases at the confluence itself.
Yeah, Elizabeth said she had some uncertainty or confusion about the scope and how this fits with surfboard as well. So yeah, definitely might want to address that there. Any other questions that'll come up for people? Sorry, were you gonna say something, Luke?
No worries.
Well, yeah, hearing no other questions unless there are any,